In the world of high society, appearances are everything. Gated communities, pristine tennis courts, country clubs. A life of luxury, far removed from the chaos of the outside world. But sometimes, beneath the surface of this manicured perfection, lies a truth far darker than anyone could imagine. This is the story of María Marta García Belsunce, a respected sociologist, a wife, a philanthropist, and a murder victim. Her death would not only send shockwaves through Argentina's elite but also unravel a tangled web of secrets, cover-ups, and conspiracy so strange it feels more like fiction than fact. Nearly 2 decades later, the case remains a national obsession. You're listening to Real Unsolved Crimes, and this is the case of María Marta García Belsunce. On October 27, 2002, a storm was passing over the Carmel Country Club, a luxurious, gated community located in Pilar, just outside Buenos Aires. The community was home to some of Argentina's wealthiest and most influential citizens. Protected by guards, surveillance, and high walls, Carmel was supposed to be a safe haven. But that illusion shattered around 7 p.m. that evening. Carlos Carrascosa, María Marta's husband, arrived home after watching a football match at his in-laws' house. When he entered the bathroom, he found María slumped in the bathtub, her head partially submerged, her body limp and lifeless. She was 50 years old. At first glance, it looked like an accident. María might have slipped, hit her head, and drowned. That's what her family believed, at least initially. But what followed was a series of events so bizarre, so contradictory, that it raised more questions than answers. Within minutes of discovering Maria's body, Carlos called family members instead of emergency services. Her stepbrother, her brother-in-law, and even a friend who was a doctor, all arrived at the scene. Together, they attempted to revive her. It was too late. The death certificate, hastily signed, listed the cause of death as cardiac arrest. No autopsy was performed. The body was cleaned, prepared, and buried. It should have ended there, but 5 days later, something unusual happened. A blood clot was found in the drain of the bathroom sink. Maria's stepbrother found it while cleaning. It didn't make sense. How could there be that much blood if she had simply slipped and hit her head? And more importantly, why had no one questioned it? But that wasn't the only strange thing. A small object, roughly the size of a coin, had been recovered from the scene and flushed down the toilet. At the time, they believed it was part of a shower fixture. Later, it would be revealed to be a bullet fragment. Yes, María Marta García Belsunce had not drowned. She had been shot 5 times. It wasn't until 45 days after Maria's death that an autopsy was ordered, following pressure from a persistent prosecutor named Diego Molina Pico. When Maria's body was exhumed, what they found was horrifying. 5 bullets were embedded in her skull. 5 shots fired into her head with remarkable precision, each one deadly. Suddenly, the entire narrative collapsed. This wasn't an accident. It wasn't natural causes. It was execution. The question now was, why did her family, and her husband, not insist on an autopsy? Why did they rush to bury her? Was it grief? Denial? Or were they hiding something? The prosecutors believed the latter. Carlos Carrascosa, the grieving husband, quickly became the prime suspect. On the surface, he had motive. He and Maria shared a complex financial life, and Maria was reportedly looking into irregularities within a family-managed foundation. But beyond that, his behavior raised suspicions. Why didn't he call an ambulance immediately? Why did he tell people she slipped and fell? Why wasn't he more shocked to find her body? In 2007, Carrascosa was convicted, not for murder, but for covering up the crime. 2 years later, the charge was upgraded. He was found guilty of homicide and sentenced to life in prison. But in 2016, everything changed again. DNA evidence from the crime scene did not match Carlos Carrascosa. New forensic analysis suggested the shooter was someone else entirely. And after spending over 7 years behind bars, Carrascosa was acquitted and released. So if it wasn't him, then who was it?